Hey y'all, Mr. Austin here. Don't mind me just erasing things because I've already recorded this once, and then when I went to go look for the file, it wasn't there. So don't mind me just erasing things. Just erasing. We love technology. Oh yeah. Now I have to get rid of all these fun shapes. I wonder, can we connect the dots? Let's see if we connected the dots. Oh, look! It's a witch's hat. Hee. Fun. Anyway. Okay, Mr. Austin, get serious. Get serious. We've got lots to do today, and you're over here making witches' hats. Come on. Respect these kiddos' time. All right, let's look at our learning objective for today. Today, we are going to, or it says, I can multiply multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10 by using place value patterns, the distributive property, and the associative property. Oh my goodness, that is a mouthful. Do you agree? I hope so. It's like 3¼ lines long. That's a lot. So let's break this down and let's process it a little bit. When I say I can multiply multi-digit whole numbers, that means, well, let's break it down. Whole numbers are numbers that are equal to 1 or greater, right? They're not parts of numbers equal to 1 or greater. Multi-digit means more than one digit, right? So numbers like 10, 13, 72, 400, 4,693, those are all multi-digit whole numbers, okay? And then multiples of 10. If you can count by tens, my friends, you know your multiples of 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, but also numbers like 480, 4,000, 90, 9,200, okay? All multiples of 10. It simply means that the number can be divided by 10 evenly. We're going to be, while we're multiplying those multi-digit whole numbers, we're going to be using place value patterns, which is something that we've been working on. And we're also going to be using these things called the distributive property and the associative property. Now, I'm fairly certain you've talked about the distributive property and the associative property before, but in case we haven't, let's review. If you have your notebook out, now would be a great time to take some notes and to get this written down. So, teacher, at any point, if you need to pause the video to let kiddos write, go for it. So the first key vocabulary that we're looking at is the distributive property. What the distributive property means is that when we're multiplying, we can multiply the value of a number across other values. So I'm just going to show an example of that right now, and we'll see it in action here in a second. Okay, but if I have 8 times 42, and I think, ooh, that's going to be hard for me, the distributive property tells me that I can distribute my 8 to the value of 40 and my 8 to the value of 2, right? Because 42 is the same thing as 40 times 2, and get, let's see, 320 plus 16, okay? But like I said, that's just an example. We'll see it in action here in a second. So we're multiplying the value of a number. So like we were multiplying the value of that 8 to other values across a number, okay? Second thing we're going to see is the associative property. Now, the associative property for our uses, we're going to use it in primarily multiplication. There are other versions of it that we can use in other operations, but today we're going to be thinking about multiplication, and it's when we group numbers together so that they're easier to work with, okay? So you do it in addition, right? Sometimes if you have 8 plus 12, you might say that you have 8 plus 10 plus 2, and you want to make this easy on yourself, so you group 8 plus 2 together, then plus 10, okay, to get 20. That's an example of it. But also, we can do it in multiplication. You're going to see it today, where when we have something like 3 tens times 4 tens, what we're going to do to make this easier on ourselves is we're going to say that's the same thing as 3 times 4 times 10 times 10. And we'll come up with the same answer. Okay, so associative property and multiplication is when we are grouping numbers so that they are easier to work with. Okay, because all of the numbers are associated with one another. All right, so again, teacher, pause if you need to allow students to get the time to write down that new vocabulary. But otherwise, let's keep chugging along. So in your problem set today, you're going to encounter some problems that first use the associative property, then you're going to see some that involve the distributive property. Now, some of you will be able to solve these using the standard algorithm. I'm so glad for you. However, does our objective today say anything about the standard algorithm? No, it does not. So we are looking for you to use these strategies today because we want to see mastery of that on your seesaw activity. So with that in mind, let's get going. So let's talk about the associative property, all right? Right now, I'm going to write the expression 3 times 4 on the whiteboard. What does 3 times 4 equal? What is this expression telling us? Hopefully you had a discussion about how 3 times 4 is the same thing as saying that you have 3 copies of 4 or 3 groups of 4, or 4 plus 4 plus 4, and we all know that that equals 12. Now, how can that knowledge help you when solving 30 times 4? Okay, for some of us, we might have a strategy that involves place value, but for some of us, we might need to use the associative property. So let's break this down. When we're using the associative property, we can say that 30 is the same thing as 3 tens, because it is, always and forever, times 4, which is the same thing as 4 ones. All right, now let's move these around so that we're multiplying numbers by numbers and words by words. So we have 3 times 4 times 10 times 1. Pretty straightforward. We already know that 3 times 4 equals 12. And 10 times 1 is pretty easy to figure out, which is 10. Now we can multiply 10 times 12, or 12 times 10, which is 120. Right, and we use the associative property to do that. Now, what happens if we have multi-digit times multi-digit? Oops, well, we could have done that, but let's stick with our pattern. Multi-digit times multi-digit. Well, again, some of us might be able to use our knowledge of place value, but today we're practicing the associative property. So let's break this down. 30 is the same thing as 3 tens times 4 tens, or times 40, which is the same thing as 4 tens. Let's do some presto changeo using our associative property. Because remember, all of these numbers at some point would have associated with each other at one point or another. So we're just simply moving it around and making it work to our benefit. Okay, that's why we call it the associative property. Okay, now this can be easier multiplied for us. We know that 3 times 4 equals 12. 10 times 10 is equal to 100. So we can say that 30 times 40 is equal to 1,200. All right, pretty straightforward. Now, let's think about the distributive property. And I really like the distributive property. It's probably one of my favorite properties in all of math because it just makes sense to me. I like multiplication because it just makes sense. Everything interacts with everything. It's very Pollyanna, very oh, look, I'm going to be friends with everyone. Anyway, so let's look at this expression. We have 451 times 8. Now, looking at this, if I was faced with this, I would go, oh my goodness, I might need to change my pants because that number scares me because that's going to be a big number. 451 times 8, 8 copies of 451. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to multiply. What am I going to do? Mr. Austin, chill out. You can use the distributive property. Okay, so by now we are pros at using multiples of 10, right? 10s, 20s, 30s when we're multiplying, I hope. So let's look at this number 451 and make it into multiples of 10. Okay, this 4 is in the hundreds place, which means it's the same thing as 400. This 5 is in the tens place, which means it's 5 tens, which is the same thing as 50. And this 1 is in the ones place, which means it's just 1. Okay, so 451 is really 400 plus 50 plus 1. Now, if I'm using my skills that I have as a 5th grader and multiplying by multiples of 10, I got this now. I don't need to go change my pants. We're going to be good. So let's distribute this 8 across 451. Okay, we're going to distribute this 8 first to 400. 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, but I have 2 zeros here, which means that I have multiplied it by 100. So I have 3,200. Then let's distribute this 8 to this 50. I have 8 times 5, which is 40, but I also multiplied it by 10 because I have this extra 0. It's the same thing as 400. Now let's distribute this 8 over to 1. 8 times 1 equal to 8. Now we can add these all together pretty easily. In my thousands place, I have a 3. In my hundreds place, I have a 2 and a 4. 2 plus 4 equals 6. In my tens place, I have zeros. My ones place, I have 0, 0, and 8. So that means that my answer is going to be 3,608. All right, again, like I said, some of you would be able to do this using the standard algorithm. That is not our goal for today. We want to see you using the distributive property and the associative property, okay? So let's go back to our learning objective today, see if we've met that goal. It says that I can multiply multi-digit whole numbers in multiples of 10 by using place value patterns, the distributive property, and the associative property. I think that we've had a very good handle on this, and I think you guys are good to go. Now in Seesaw, your teacher is going to work through the problem set with you, gradually letting you go as you get it. So for some of you, you're going to be like, yep, got this, see you later. This is a chance for you to be honest with yourself and get the help that you need from your teacher. This is how you're going to be getting the more focused attention from your teacher. All right? If you need to stay back and get some help, go for it. I was the absolute king of staying after class and getting help. Nothing wrong with it. Please take advantage of your teachers in this regard. Don't take advantage of us in real life. That's not cool. But take advantage of this opportunity, rather, to get some help with your work done. On Seesaw, you're going to be turning in a picture of your problem set so that we see that you have it done. Remember, if we're taking pictures like this, all right, we're not going to be able to see it. We need to be taking clear pictures so that your teachers can see it. All right. Then you're also going to have an exit ticket that you're going to need to complete. If you do not have your problem set pictures and your exit ticket, it is getting sent back to you, my friends, with a comment from your teacher saying, please complete the assignment. All right, I've explained it here. The directions are on the slide. get it done. All right. Remember to use your tools in Seesaw that you have. If you want to use the voice recorder to record your thinking, I love hearing your thinking, because Mr. Austin is not necessarily, and the rest of your teachers are not necessarily looking for the right answer. Rather, we're looking for how you came to that answer that you came to. If it's right, great. If not, let's go back to where you were so that we can work through it and work through your thinking with you. Okay? So all that being said, y'all are amazing. Y'all are some of my favorite people ever. Go and be brilliant, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.